On February 3, 1945, the most feared judge in Germany was crushed to death inside his own courtroom, still clutching the case files of the man he had come to condemn. That man walked out of the ruins alive. Roland Freisler had sent thousands to the guillotine and the gallows, screaming at them as they begged. This is the story of the judge who gave everyone else a verdict and never faced one himself. Karl Roland Freisler was born on October 30th, 1893, in the town of Tell. Raised in a disciplined household, he completed his secondary education and enrolled as a law student. In 1912, the outbreak of the First World War disrupted his studies, and he was drafted into the Imperial German Army, serving on the Eastern Front with the 10th Infantry Regiment. On July 23, 1915, during a counteroffensive near Kovel, Freisler was wounded in the thigh by shrapnel and captured by Russian troops. He was sent to the Kamenka, prisoner of war camp near Saratov, deep in Russia. For nearly 4 years, Freisler endured the harsh realities of Siberian captivity, adapting to his confinement by learning fluent Russian. When he was repatriated in 1919, the young veteran returned to a defeated homeland, altered by years of isolation and the collapse of the world he once knew. Freisler returned to a fractured Weimar Republic in 1920, immediately resuming his legal education. By 1922, he completed his doctorate in law at the University of Jena, focused on the power of the state. In the political chaos of the post-war years, he briefly aligned with left-wing radicals before committing to the far right. On May 1, 1925, he officially joined the Nazi Party as an early member. He soon established a law practice in Kassel, representing stormtroopers and party agitators charged with political violence. In these trials, Freisler used his legal education to turn the courtroom into a political stage. He yelled at prosecutors, insulted witnesses, and converted technical defense strategies into aggressive propaganda. This confrontational style caught the attention of senior party officials. His legal training and fanatical political loyalty had become completely inseparable. In March 1933, the regime appointed Freisler as Chief Personnel Officer of the Prussian Ministry of Justice. He used this administrative authority to purge politically unreliable judges, replacing them with loyal party ideologues. Within months, he rose to State Secretary, a rank he maintained when the Prussian and Reich justice ministries merged in 1935. As the second highest official in the German judicial hierarchy, Freisler co-authored key legal commentaries that dismantled civil liberties, providing a legal cover for Gestapo arrests. His bureaucratic influence reached the highest levels of state terror on January 20, 1942, when he attended the Wannsee Conference. Representing the Reich Justice Ministry, he helped coordinate the legal framework for the final solution, integrating genocidal policy directly into the German legal system. The fanatical defense lawyer was now an architect of state-sanctioned mass murder. On August 20, 1942, Adolf Hitler issued a decree appointing Roland Freisler as president of the Volksgerichtshof, the People's Court. Under his direction, this political tribunal abandoned any remaining pretense of impartiality. The courtroom became a production line for death sentences, operating on a singular, brutal mechanism. The verdict was decided before the accused ever spoke. Defendants entered this space completely stripped of legal protection. Their assigned defense lawyers refused to defend them, collaborating instead with prosecutors to confirm their guilt. Freisler ruled the proceedings with theatrical violence. Clad in a bright scarlet robe, he leaned over the bench, launching into explosive, screaming tirades that drowned out the voices of the accused. He interrupted constantly, hurled personal insults, and mocked those standing trial. This calculated rage functioned as a deliberate method of state terror. On direct orders from Joseph Goebbels, the Reich Film Department brought cameras into the courtroom to document the staged humiliations. These films were edited into newsreels to terrify the German public and reassure Hitler of his judiciary's absolute obedience. The courtroom acted as a psychological weapon of the state, transforming legal procedure into a precursor for execution and leaving the accused entirely defenseless in the face of absolute power. On February 22, 1943, Sophie and Hans Scholl stood before the People's Court. The Munich University students, leaders of the passive resistance group known as the White Rose, had been arrested just 4 days prior for distributing anti-war leaflets. Under Freisler's gavel, their trial lasted only hours. Freisler did not seek testimony. He sought absolute destruction. He screamed at the siblings, calling them assassins of German honor. Sophie confronted the fury calmly, telling the bench that many others believed exactly what they had written. Freisler silenced her with another outburst, declaring her idealism a poison. By noon, the inevitable verdict was delivered: high treason. At 5 o'clock that same afternoon, inside Platzensee prison, 21-year-old Sophie and her 24-year-old brother Hans were led to the execution chamber and beheaded by guillotine. The state had transformed a legal trial into a swift, bureaucratic murder. The failure of the July 20th, 1944 plot against Adolf Hitler brought a new wave of victims to the People's Court. Field Marshal Erwin von Witzleben and his fellow conspirators stood before the bench, stripped of their suspenders and belts. Forced to grasp their ill-fitting trousers to keep them from falling, the men endured Freisler's screams and insults. Cameras captured every moment, recording the staged trials on high-contrast film for state propaganda. The verdicts were immediate, followed by agonizing executions. The conspirators were hanged from meat hooks with thin piano wire at Platzensee prison. This slaughter became the defining feature of late-war justice, a systematic effort to crush any remaining resistance. In his years as president, more than 2,600 death sentences were issued under Freisler's gavel. The court operated as a rapid assembly line of execution, turning the legal system into a blunt instrument of terror. On February 3, 1945, a massive daylight raid by American B-17 bombers targeted Berlin's government quarter. Inside the People's Court, at 1 Königgrätzer Strasse, Roland Freisler was presiding over the trial of Fabian von Schlabrendorf, a key military conspirator. When the sirens wailed, Freisler ordered the courtroom evacuated, but paused to secure the paperwork. A high explosive bomb struck the building, collapsing the concrete ceiling. Freisler was killed instantly by falling masonry, still clutching Schlabrendorf's prosecution files, while the regime's theatrical executioner lay crushed beneath the ruins of his own courtroom. His intended victim crawled out of the wreckage alive. Schlabrendorf survived the war, ultimately serving as a judge on Germany's post-war Federal Constitutional Court. The tyrant who weaponized the law was buried in an anonymous, unmarked grave, while the man he tried to destroy lived to restore real justice. The interment took place on February 8, 1945, at the Waldfriedhof Dahlem Cemetery in Berlin-Zehlendorf. Placed within the family plot of his wife, Marion Russiger, his final resting place was left completely blank to ensure it could never become a shrine. No monument or headstone bears his name. This anonymity closed the life of a man who transformed the legal system into a conveyor belt of execution. The judge who denied thousands a fair trial left the world without ever facing a verdict of his own. Today, the courtrooms are gone, but the warning remains. When law abandons truth for ideology, justice becomes the ultimate weapon of terror. Freisler's legacy is a chilling reminder of how easily the bench can turn into a gallows. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more history.